welcome everybody, and thank you for joining us on this Mindful Monday. As you know, we love providing resources, education, connections, and collaborations to support you on your wellness journey. And of course, Mindful Mondays would not be possible without our sponsors. So I want to start by thanking Gail Kraft, White Sands Premier Travel, Vibe, and BAM Metrics for making this possible. But I am super excited to have Gail with us today. She is an incredible lady, and she has gone from the streets well, from the streets of Boston, okay, to the heights of corporate success. And her journey is nothing short of inspiring. So she, at 28, she turned her first business around, but that quest for purpose didn't stop there. And Gail has transformed her life through personal responsibility and growth and diving deep into the NLP, quantum linguistics, and meditation. And now she's here to share with us her wisdom as a business, leadership, and spirituality guide. As the creator of the Flow Formula, which I am looking forward to talking about, and the host of the Empowering Process podcast, Gail empowers others to find harmony in body, mind, and spirit. Gail, thank you so much for joining us today.
Oh, Laura, this is going to be so much fun. We're going to share stories.
Yeah. I love that. I mean, so that was it's first time. Well, so I was born in Chicopee, Massachusetts. I still have not been to Boston, but I've heard that it's fairly rough. But that's kind of a different take. Can you share a pivotal moment for us from your early days, like in the street gangs of Boston, and how that influenced your path towards success?
Oh, yes. So there's a long abandonment story there, but I ended up finding family in a gang because that's exactly what a gang is. They take care of you. And left at the age of 16 and moved in with my brother, leaving the inner city, which allowed me to disassociate and actually change my mindset and my perspective. So it was a very, very good thing. But because of that experience, I was pretty brave and pretty cocky and pretty sure of myself. But I was also still abandoned, right?
Mm-hmm.
So what happened when I entered corporate, that abandonment issue actually made me seek approval. And so in the process of being A-type personality, having to do more and more and more, right? Everything I did was really, really successful. And then at the age of 28, I was working in a company and the president called me when I was home and said, "I'm firing your boss and I'm offering the position to you.
Wow.
We're in trouble and I think you can turn us around. Are you interested?" Again, being so cocky and sure of myself, I thought, this is perfect because there's nowhere to go but up. It never dawned on me that I could put them out of business.
Wow.
Right?
Yeah.
So, within 10 months, we were looking for technology and ways to spend money in order to reduce our tax base. So,
Wow.
yes, I turned it around. But that's where I discovered the Midas touch. But it came from abandonment. It came from that drive, and the cockiness came from the gang.
Wow. Okay. Yeah, I was gonna say, it reminds me when you said that, the first thing I thought was, because when you get around all those business coaches, they always tell you, just say yes, figure out how to do it later. But you kind of already had that confidence, or cockiness, like you said, coming
Right,
in from the gang. So
right, right,
yeah.
right.
But you shifted, even though still from corporate world to business coaching. So how did that transition
Oh, that
shift
was
for you?
beautiful. That's a beautiful story. So, my success continued, and I ended up on the board of directors at a national insurance company, and didn't like it at all. So at that point, I literally got into the line of fire for a layoff,
Mhm.
and decided that didn't want to go past a certain level, and so started project management. And I moved across the country, 3,000 miles to San Diego. And day one entered a job that I knew value wise did not match mine. But I wasn't aware enough or confident enough at that point to leave. I was 3,000 miles away from home. I knew nobody, and it's a very expensive place to live. So I thought I could make this work after all. I've made everything in my life work up to that
Mhm.
point, right? Um, and I couldn't. It was not the right place for me, and I wouldn't leave. So the universe made it possible for me to leave by getting me fired, which was awesome because I hit such a terrible low, such a horrible person. I hated myself. I realized that the common denominator was me, and I needed to start taking a deeper look at myself and figure out what I wanted to do with my life. And I didn't want corporate. So I became a certified business coach using 6 disciplines process, which mirrors GE. I worked for GE for a while. Um, and in that process, I said to the trainers when I was done, I said, this is a great process, great methodology. I love your tools. You have nothing here for people. And my experience has been if the people don't buy in first, it doesn't matter how good this is.
Right.
So I'm going to get me this thing called a life coach certification.
I
Have
like you
no
put it,
clue,
this thing.
right? Had
Mhm.
no idea what that meant. So that I could better communicate and get the buy-in from the people first. Day one, I knew that a lot of the tools and techniques that I was being taught were things I used anyway organically as a leader, that it was natural for me. I almost didn't even have to read. I could just pass the test and because I knew it. And I started being pulled. And that pull versus push has been the cornerstone of my life ever since.
So let's back up a little bit because you've mentioned universe and pull, which I love. But when you get and you like you said, the universe was opening a door for you. But did you realize that at the time when you got fired? Because a lot of people when they get fired, they're angry and
Oh,
they
yeah.
blame everybody else. So
I was angry. I sued them.
okay,
All right. But it was when I couldn't stand who I had become. And I looked in the mirror and literally said, I don't like who you have become. And I'm surprised you have any friends left. This has got to change and it's up to you to change. And I still didn't look at the universe. I took responsibility and accountability for who I was, but I did know that I had to figure out what was going on inside,
hmm,
right, in order to change the reflection outside. And life coaching was the first step towards that. But I dove deep into NLP. I dove deep into quantum linguistics. And then I got exposed to quantum healing, sacred geometry, the Kabbalah. Just like one thing after another, after another, after another was presenting itself to me. I worked with motivational speakers for a while and learned the ins and outs and do's and don'ts there. And so it's been a constant growth ever since. Every year I grow exponentially. Every year. It's beautiful.
wow. So did you? I mean, what kind of process was there a process you kind of went through, or do you just kind of stopped and looked and said you didn't like what you become? I mean, did you? What did that kind of look like? Because a lot of people I think struggle with that. Was there?
Yes. And I think I did struggle with that. I started watching my language before I understood words. I started watching my thought process. I took a look at what are capabilities versus skills, right? Skills can be learned, capabilities are innate,
Mhm.
right? And understanding the difference and then leaning on my innate capabilities. Like, what are those? I didn't even know what they were, right?
Right.
Yeah, I didn't even know what my core values were. I knew what values were because I've been in business, but those are BS. Those are something written on the wall, and no business follows what they write on the wall, right?
Right.
So there's a misalignment there. And so I started to understand misalignment versus alignment. And so as each step of me looking internally as to, well, what does this mean, and being curious, the opportunity to learn more and find different processes were presented to me. So yes, the coaching, I don't use any tool that I haven't used on myself with anybody, right? I go through
Right.
the process myself. And so I know what that experience is like. And I will use a process with someone that maybe didn't work for me, but I know what the process is like because what works for me isn't necessarily good, right? I need to
Right.
have that, like, oh, this works for me. I know it'll work for you. Impossible. We're all so different. But I've tried the tool and I know what to expect with the tool.
Yeah.
right?
I always say that, tell people, I was like, everybody is different.
Yes.
And I always hate when coaches or leaders or mentors want to keep trying. I understand not reinventing the wheel, but stop trying to put me in a box that just doesn't fit.
It doesn't work. It doesn't. How can you? So we could go on and on about how the
Mhm.
coaching industry will say one thing and then reflect another thing. So, I would say that in 2019, so it was before the big C happened, um, I started looking at everything as though it were a lie. And what this allowed me to do was to change my perspective
Mhm.
on absolutely everything to multiple perspectives, and have come to the conclusion that nothing is true, that it's all a story. It's all just a story. And so I can change anything by changing my story.
Nice.
Yeah.
Yeah. And that's always definitely a different way to look at it. But I also know what you mean by the corporate, because I used to work with corporate and stuff. And it's kind of like the do as we say, not as we do kind of a thing. And I was like, that is not what I live by.
No.
I'm like you. If I'm helping somebody or recommending something, it's because it's something that helped me, that I am familiar with, that I went through, but I stay in my lane. you
Yes.
know, I don't try to go outside my lane. I'm happy to connect them to someone else that can help them. But yeah.
Yeah. Yeah. It's really interesting. I'm collaborating with someone right now, and um, we're going to be using surveys. And he didn't understand when I was talking about KPIs and a balanced scorecard and all that. So I
Right.
brought them up to show him, right? This is what we will do when we do gap analysis, right? It has to be in alignment with what's important to the company, and that's what we think is important. We don't matter to our customer,
Right.
right? And I don't matter to my customer. I don't, right?
Yeah. Yeah. Yep.
Right.
With
So,
the, all about providing the results or getting them, the results to where they want to be.
right. And holding the space for them to grow at their pace,
Yeah.
right, at their pace, which may be fast or slow, or everything in between. So I'm on this journey. I've worked a lot with leaders, leaders who want to grow, leaders who want to go to another level, leaders who want to grow their team, their business. And so I was presenting crafting the flow formula. And the way that came up is I was doing keynotes on flow. And a gentleman called and asked if I was interested in being at his symposium. And I have a bunch of questions, because if I'm not the right speaker, I'll find the right speaker for you again.
Mhm.
So I said, well, what's the purpose of your symposium? And he said, disruption in leadership. Oh, how disruptive can I get? He said, as disruptive as you'd like. I said, who's the audience? And they were a bunch of leaders from IT. So I'm like, oh, so what does IT understand? They understand formula. So my flow keynote became a flow formula.
Formula.
Right?
Got to speak their language
I
if you
had to
want to get
speak
their
their language.
attention.
I'll tell you, I had them up. I have an exercise that I used with them where you get up and you write your name on like a sticky note on your back. And everyone comes up and they write what they know about you or love about you or whatever on your back, right? So
Uh-huh.
these guys are up doing this thing, and the next thing I know, they're doing a conga line, because one of the things I talk about is play in business, right?
Hmm.
Right, bringing joy and laughter in order to be innovative and creative. And they were so thrilled, the people who ran it, that they got these people who were normally like this up, and there wasn't one person not in that conga line. It was awesome. I was laughing. It was beautiful.
Yeah, I love when things like that happen, because it gets kind of contagious. Because if nothing else, it looks like fun, but you kind of feel left out, so you might as well join, right?
You might as well join, right? Or you feel conspicuous by not joining versus conspicuous by joining,
Yeah,
right?
yeah, yeah. It always takes that one to get it started.
So I created the keynote a little bit more, and basically the formula is we start off with what's your state? S. That's your emotional state, right? And there are very quick ways to check in and adjust that. And so I talk about some of those things that we can do. right? The next thing is your intention. And so I have an exercise that demonstrates your intention really matters, right? So what you
Mhm.
say may mean one thing, but if your intention is something else, it comes across. And
Oh, yeah.
energetically, I demonstrate how that they demonstrate how that happens. And then the third part, so you've got your state S, you've got your intentions I, and then M for mindful routines. We don't call it meditation because,
It's too woo-woo for
it's
some
too woo
people.
woo. But mindful routines, and that can be as long as what you're doing is intentional in order to get your mindset where you want it to be that day. And whether it's a walk outside, and that would be a walking meditation, or right.
Right.
So I use a few examples that aren't meditation, but I do go into meditation, and I do meditate, and that gives you your results. And then I use real life examples where I did have teams that I got into flow, how I got them into flow, and the amazing results that I had because of it. So I have real life, thank you, corporate, real life experience where I can share that this stuff works,
Right.
right? And so now I've got that presentation. So, how did the book come about?
Yeah.
I had no intentions of writing the book.
I was
So,
gonna say, you go ahead. You beat me to my next question,
right,
but you
right.
go right ahead.
So my friend calls, a friend of mine, and he says, "Oh, I'm running an event of a bunch of leaders, and most of them are entrepreneurs, but they have small businesses as well. And I would love for you to be a keynote and present your crafting the flow formula." I said, "Okay, that's cool." So we set up the arrangements and do whatever, and then I get a call. He goes, "Oh, by the way, all of my speakers have a book that they share with the VIPs that have come." Right. So the VIPs pay for
Mhm.
special things, right? Well, all of my books have nothing to do with crafting the flow formula.
Right.
So I'm like, holy shit.
There's a need.
Right. So I grab my notes and I throw it into a book. The print literally came the day they were packing the bags for the VIPs. Literally right under the wire. So
Wow.
So that's how the book came. It is literally, so I had the flow formula, then crafting the flow formula because of who my audience was, and then the book because of who my audience was. So it really is about flexing and adjusting, right?
Mhm.
And even the exercises I do they're different with each group because it's who are they, how far are they willing to go,
Right.
right?
You kinda read the room a little bit and
Yeah,
see.
please.
Yeah, and that's good that you're able to do that. Is there a particular success story or one that you would wanna share or something that stands out to you that you changed?
Well, I'll continue with flow, and I'll use
Mhm.
one of the stories that I use in my keynote in my presentation, and that is I was working for this company, and my role, I had actually three teams under me, and one of the team's responsibility was to find creative solutions to the company. Right. So creative solutions too, by the way, it was an insurance company. How creative can you be in an insurance company? Right.
Yeah, that's like
So,
taxes. Yeah.
so once a month, we would get a conference room and I would have lunch brought in. And there's lots of communal evidence around a team eating together. Right. And then we would play games and it was up to them what we played. Usually it was Pictionary. And we would be not only snort laughing, tears running down our face, we'd be rolling on the dirty floor laughing, right?
Mhm.
Because it got outrageous. Yes, it got dirty, right? And
Yeah.
we had, so all of our pretenses, all of our walls, everything is down. The next thing I did right after that was done is I put a recorder in the middle of the table and we sat down and we brainstormed. Energy is high, so everything is energy, as high as I could possibly get it. Joy is about as high as you can get,
Right.
right? And then I had things like, whoa, wait, what did you say? We can then blah blah blah. Yes, and then we can blah blah blah. I had to record it. There's no taking notes when things come that fast.
Right.
right? And we came up with some brilliant, brilliant, innovative ideas. And that's what leaders want in their team. They don't want the team just to chunk out what they need to chunk out every day. They want them to chunk it out with joy and laughter. They want them to chunk them out in the most creative and innovative way as possible. That means you
Yeah.
have to give your team permission to come up with those ideas, right?
Yeah.
And
I
create.
love that. I've seen studies on certain ones, and it's actually I experienced one here in town where they actually have everything all open and cornhole and stuff where they can take breaks and
Got it.
play at work so they can like reset and not just be in your cubicle, be in your office. I mean, they're a lot more productive for them and stuff too. It's amazing how that little difference can make a
Yeah.
huge difference in everything
Have
else.
meetings outside in the grass, right?
Yeah,
Where there's sun and the smell of Mother Nature. It's just, there are so many ways, and I've done them all. I've done them all. I love the communal part of the meal. And honestly, if I had it in my budgets, I would be feeding my team every day, right?
yeah,
Because that really creates a level of knowing each other like
hmm,
family,
right,
right?
yeah.
Right. And it really is, beautiful things come out of that. Yeah.
Yeah. Yeah. Kind of wish, well, it would have been nice if that was around when I was working for corporate, but at least I'm not working for corporate anymore. I work for work for myself. But
Yeah.
Gail, we got to take a quick break from a word from our
See
sponsors,
you in a
but
minute.
we will be right back because I know we have a lot more to discuss.
Relief for PTSD, anxiety, pain, insomnia, and many other ailments. Introducing Vibe, the world's only pocket PEMF device. You place in your pocket while cooking, cleaning, relaxing, watching TV, sitting at your computer, reading, or walking. Self-contained standalone device. No drugs. No other phone or Bluetooth connections required. No monthly subscription fees. No apps to download. No Bozone. The future of medicine is in the frequencies. Come join the revolution.
Hi, I'm Bobby Aldridge with BAM Metrics. There are so many programs out there that measure your swing speed, sets, reps, your BMI, your body fat, but the one thing they're not measuring that's so essential is mobility. Mobility is the key. If you're measuring your mobility, your performance will get better and you will reduce your pain. I created BAM Metrics to make it easy for people to repeat the exercises so they could do it properly at home on their own. It's simple, it's easy to do, and from a senior to a pro athlete.
Gail, tell me when you use the flow formula, do you use it today for like even solo entrepreneurs or entrepreneurs? Do you ever hold retreats for it?
I've not held retreats for it, but I do work with leaders on that. And part of the process includes language, of course. I do a lot of work with leaders on how they are speaking into the hearing, right? Understand
Hmm.
what that means to speaking into the listening of the person that they're talking to, and how to use quantum linguistics in a way that is beneficial. Like, there are times that you want to say, you have to do this. And there are other times that you really don't want to say that. Right? Right.
Right.
Right. And there is, even the word need. So I have a story around the word need. I at one point gave up everything in San Diego and moved to Oregon to work for a motivational speaker. And the very first day She came out of, where she was working, and she said, "I need you too." And by then, I was already pretty good with quantum linguistics,
Mm-hmm.
right? Already master trained in NLP. And the word need came up, and I thought, I'm in trouble. We've got someone that I am working with who is supposed to be a motivational speaker, someone who understands language using the word need. She's coming from a lack state. She's coming from a fear state. I'm in trouble, right?
Right.
Because I cannot, there are things that I am unable to do. I'll give you a very recent example. I was involved with a group. This was the last group I was involved with. I said it was going to be no more groups. I'm done. Whoop,
Oop.
wrong. Right? The universe always shows me where I'm wrong. And and I was helping the founder develop his technology foundation by being the project manager, right? Getting the technology people to talk together, to work together, solution together, and get things done. And I was doing it for free because I was helping him build this business.
Mm.
And we meet, and he says, I've never trusted anyone who's worked for me. Trust is my third value. My values are my boundaries,
Mm-hmm.
right?
Right.
So he said that, and I had to think about, because it kind of hit me between the eyes. I'm like, oh, this is a problem. So I called him back, and I said, we have a problem here. I can't make you trust me, and I can't work for someone who doesn't trust me, because they become untrustworthy,
Right.
right? And he said, no, I'll work on it. I'm aware of it. I'll work on it. I said, well, this is your warning, because I cannot work for someone who, right? And so less than a week later, he's going behind my back to technology, redirecting. And so I called him and I said, I'm done. This is a boundary. And
Right.
so one of the most important things, and that comes up with my training with leadership, is understanding that boundaries are very important, and that if there are no consequences, at GE we used to call it, there's no teeth in the metrics.
Right.
So the metrics don't matter, right? And so if I had not first said, I can't work for you if that's the way it's going to be. So I warning shot,
Mm-hmm.
right? And then the repeat, if I didn't lower the gun and take it straight aim like I said I was going to, then my boundary is really just a complaint factory and not a boundary, right?
Yeah.
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 I told a client one time, this is my favorite. So you allowed so and so to cross your boundary, and you didn't reinforce the boundary. You didn't say, hey, right? So here's what happens when you do that. They not only cross the boundary, they set up camp, and they start cooking, and they make a home there. There is no longer a boundary, and that's your fault, not theirs,
Right.
right? Right. And so in leadership, what that translations to, in the same with the flow formula, that's intention, right? Very clear about what your intentions are and the consequences of your intention. But understand that doing that from the first one, an emotional state, right, of
Mm-hmm.
activity, and the purpose is to meet a goal, a common goal, that comes across really well. Um, I was explaining to someone today, one of my successes in business is I expected nothing but the best from my team. I set the bar high,
Right.
but I was very, very clear. Here's your job description. What that means is here's the functionality. Here's what you need to do. Here's what I expect from you. Here are the tools to get there. If you need anything, I'm over there, and I will be glad to help you. Very clear boundaries and very clear consequences when they saw the first person let go, right?
Right.
And it was not ever from, I let people go that I really adored, really were sweethearts, but I only asked them to show up. Can you just come into work today?
Right.
Right.
Right. It's not too much to ask. You want to get paid? You should show
Right,
up.
right. Just you don't even work. Just come in and sit down. Um, I'll share another story where integrity is part of intentions. I was working for an insurance company in the controller's department, and one of my staff let a refund go out that was outrageous without investigating it. And the CFO comes out swearing at the top of his lungs, "Who the fuck did this?" Right?
Mm-hmm.
I got physically between him and my team. She was literally behind me and said, "That's my fault. I'll take care of it." And you bet. All right. Then he went into his office. I waited a moment and then I called her into mine and I said, "This is my fault. There is a gap in my training and or my processes. You and I are going to figure that out."
Yeah.
Right. And
Nice. I mean, you don't meet a lot of people that even will do that. It's normally just stuff rolls downhill, right? And
right. Well, it
yeah,
does. It does.
yeah,
But it was my fault. There
right,
was obviously something she didn't understand about the process, and that's my fault. Right. And that's where I learned how to be a trainer because the fault was me not saying to her, "So tell me what you heard me say." Right. And that's part
right,
of communication and that I learned a long time ago. So you don't hear what I say. And now, because of NLP, I understand why. Right. You don't hear everything I say. And when you do, you've twisted to a way that you understand it. And the
to what you want to
picture,
hear.
right. And the picture is totally different. And so if I ask you to repeat back to me what you heard, I'm not being arrogant. I want to be sure that I have communicated clearly enough for you to get what I'm trying to communicate.
Right.
It's that simple. Um, One of the other tools, and this is quantum linguistics, is understanding when I hear generalizations. And I'll give you another example. Sitting at the table, this is I teach with my leaders all the time. Sitting at the table with my sister-in-law, and she's like, "They do this all the time. I don't like what they are doing." And so I looked down and I said, "Oh, specifically who are they?" "Well, those people knows exactly what person." "Well, there isn't a person." "Oh, and what is it, the thing that you're talking about?" Right. And when
Uh-huh.
you start asking, you will either get clarity, which is what you're really looking for, or the person will realize that they're really complaining just for the act of complaining.
Complaining. Yeah.
Right.
I always called it stereotypes or, dropping people in, categories or, but like you said, generalizing. Just because you had
Right.
an experience with one doesn't mean they all, don't
Right.
mean they all do it.
Yes. Yes. And
Yeah.
the other gentleman I was talking to this week, we were talking about stats, which I love stats as well. And we were talking about, the bottom 10%, the top 1%, and everyone in between. Right.
Hmm.
And, who do you think the givers are? Right. Well, what do you think the 1% is? They're the biggest givers of all of it. And most people will say they're takers, and they're not. It's actually the bottom 10,
Right.
right, that are the takers that are complaining about the top one, not giving it
Different
up.
perceptions, probably previous experiences, but yeah,
Right.
they meet one and they think, oh my God, they're all that way.
Exactly.
Yeah.
Exactly. There's one, but what about all of the rest? And you're blind to all of the rest. And that's what we do in our brain. And someday I'll give you an NLP. This is how the brain filters
Hmm.
and what we do and understanding that. That's one of the reasons why I don't call myself a coach, because the second I say that word, I go into a folder. You think you have a preconceived idea of what a coach is. And
Right.
I'm not that. And neither are you.
No, and that's another one people have generalizations about. I told people I am the entrepreneur of me. It's
Right?
like, do not
Right?
stick a label on me. Don't put me in a box.
Right, right. Even the word empowerment. I used empowerment, I would say almost 10 years ago. And now everybody's using empowerment and everyone has a preconceived idea of what that means. Right. And
Yeah.
so I've already written a book about it. So that kind of puts me in that kind of stuck there.
I know, but do you think that'll ever not happen? I mean, normally it just takes time. I don't care what word you come up with. All of a sudden, it's going to be a buzzword. It's going to get overused, and then people will have their own generalizations about it.
Right?
That's generally how it goes.
Generally, and
Generally,
it's because our brain has to be efficient. Our conscious brain, our subconscious brain takes in everything, but our conscious brain has to. So I'll give you a quick. Right around me right now, there are literally 3 billion bits of information. That's billion. There's the light, there's the air, there's so much that is going on around me right now. My brain can take in 750. So it blocks the rest,
right?
right? And then what it brings in order for me to understand it, we'll generalize it. They put it in a bucket, coach, and then take a picture and create what I think that is based on my emotions, my biases, my beliefs. And so now what you have just said to me is not at all what you communicate. Right? But if I
Right.
repeat back to you, now you're receiving it through your set of filters. And I tell leaders when I explain this, and you think you're communicating. Really?
Yeah.
Yeah.
And that's a very good point. I was wondering, can you explain maybe a little more detail what quantum linguistics is? I know quantum energy fields. I'm familiar with that. I've never heard quantum linguistics before.
So quantum linguistics is a way to communicate to use all the quadrants of your brain, right? And there is, I will give you the questions that literally will frustrate you, but force you to use the different quadrants of your brain on any situation. So, hey, so Laurie, you want to own a yacht someday, right? What will it look like when you have that yacht? What will it look like? And you journal what it will look like. So that's
Okay.
a will, right? What will it not look like? That's a not, right? If you didn't have it, what will happen? That's not a not. And if
Okay.
you didn't have it, what wouldn't happen? That's 2 negatives.
Right.
The answers are not the same. Some people try to generalize and make them the same. And the frustration is, if you're working with me, I'll go, yeah, no, that listen to the language, listen to the words, and I'll give you you can have a breakthrough by working with these questions immediately. And the last thing I will say to you, so what were you pretending to believe to think you had a problem? Because you just had a breakthrough, right?
Yeah.
Right. I did this in a workshop when I first learned about it. And one woman was in tears at the end. And she had been lackadaisical about her health. Yeah, I'll go on a diet tomorrow. And she said, I just realized that if I don't get my act together, I will not see my grandchildren. It is important for them, for me to get my act together.
Yeah.
Right. So it can have a profound impact on you. So that's quantum linguistics, is forcing you to think from every quadrant of your brain.
Kind of reminds me of the tests and stuff that they do on the 16 personalities and the disc, and it's like, what are these questions? And it's like, even when you know it's trying to get at it, and I try to cheat, it's like it'll still come out. I'll still get kind of like the same results. It still gets around it. It's amazing how that works.
You are who you are.
Yep.
It's
Yep.
interesting taking those tests at different points in your life, because there are certain things. For example, the first time that I took an emotional intelligence test, very intense test,
You're hitting your mic.
I hit
Yeah.
like 119.
Mm-hmm.
The average person hits 80 on the score. And I'm like, well, that's really interesting. And it was at a company. And I go to a meeting, and my leaders were arguing with the trainers because their scores were low. This is the company that I got fired from.
Right.
And I'm sitting there going, oh, Gail, this is what the problem is. This is not good.
No, no, nope.
No, this is not good. So, and I've taken EI tests since then. EI is something that you can work on. That is what you do work on when you're working with a guide that is a personal development guide, which is you are and I am. That's what that's all about, is about taking the person, whether you're in business and you're looking from a business perspective or you're looking from a relationship perspective.
Right.
You're learning how to emotionally be intelligent. And that doesn't mean suppress your emotions. And that doesn't mean don't cry. That means cry your eyes out. It means know why you're crying.
Yeah.
It means release when you cry. Right. And it's cleansing. It's a beautiful thing.
Yeah. You said release, and that reminded me of someone else said, because like you said, it's power in words, right? Because
Yeah.
how many times do we say, I want to lose so many pounds? It's like, no, you don't want to lose it, because that means your brain wants to go find it again. So
Right. Right.
release. It's all
Release.
those, I am releasing that
Right.
way.
So we'll talk about that. So that's, again, so that's a part of the mindful routine, is being aware of your language, right?
Mhm.
And we have submodalities that we really don't pay much attention to in our brain. And one of them is whether you're moving towards something or away from it.
Right.
And so, Oprah, I love you. Thank you for this example. Oprah cannot lose weight and keep it gone. Why? Because she is moving away from being fat. So when she gets far enough away, her subconscious mind says, if I want to continue to move away from being fat, I have to get fat again so I can move away from being fat. Whereas if you're moving towards being the healthiest I can be, you're always moving towards that. And you don't slip back. That's where, if you're having these roller coaster results, your subroutine is bringing you back, right? And so the
Yeah.
language that you're using is not the right language, right? This is why in the cancer community, I am not a survivor. I never go to war with my body. If I'm a survivor, that means I need another war.
Right.
I
Right.
am not a survivor.
Be a thriver.
Right?
Yeah.
Exactly. So be very, very careful, right? And correct those that are around you that project their vision, and from a place of love. It's like, that might be true for you, but it's not true for me. That's all.
Right. Yeah, I love that. Yeah, yeah. I kind of have to. The more I practice it myself, it's like the more I start realizing, what people are doing around me, and if they don't, it's like that's okay. I was like, yeah, that's not me. That's not my
Right,
space.
right. And I still get, so we're talking, it's over a year now since the last treatment that I had. And I said, how are you doing? I was like, "Okay, what do you mean?" And I will say, well, what do you mean?
Yeah.
Right. And they won't say the word, right?
Right.
Well, I just want to make sure that you're okay. Like, no, you don't. You want some gossip. But right. Right. And I'll answer quite honestly, I'm healthier now than I ever was.
Hmm.
So thank you very much for inquiring. Right. You never
Yeah.
inquired before, so I know what the story is all about.
Right.
Um,
Not to say there's not people that genuinely care and want to know, but of course, when you get around certain subjects, we all get a little funny, and it's
yeah.
like you want to know, you want to be healed, but yet you don't want to like be that reminder or bring it up. You're not sure where that person's at, but
Well, yes, and you and I have a dear friend, Howard, and he called me before this last stint that he was on, and wanted to create a program with me, which is ready to go whenever Howard's ready to go.
hmm.
And he said, I'm tired of being the cancer poster boy. Well, he said that too late,
Yeah.
right? He had been that for, I think, 7 years, right? And so he didn't have it anymore. He wasn't a survivor anymore. So what happened? Just like, and it happened that quickly, just like that.
Yeah.
Right. So be careful about the language that you're using and the energy that you're putting out. That's all part of crafting the flow formula, because if you have on your wall that customers come first and all you care about is sales, then you are not in alignment. It is okay for you to say sales is important to this company,
Right.
because then you'll hire the right people, right? If you
Mhm.
say customers are important and that's not true, you're hiring people who are very unhappy because they're in the wrong place,
Yeah.
right? And it's okay. There is no judgment. Just know what your goals are and go for it. Go for it unapologetically.
Oh yeah, and I love that. It's like being in alignment is a big thing. I mean, because there's so many of us that are just plugging away at what we think we're supposed to do, not happy, not aligned. And I'm like, I'm sorry that my time is too. I was like, that's not how I want to spend my time.
No, no.
I won't
And
say it's too short because it's not necessarily short, but I don't want to spend my time that way. And being
exactly.
conscious about that to say, hey, nope, not me.
Not me, not me. I have
Yeah.
a friend who calls it, it's like complete alignment, mind, body, and the soul. So it's spiritually aligned as well as physically aligned. And you can feel it. It's like when gears are out of sort and then they click together.
Hmm.
You can almost feel that when you're in alignment.
Yeah.
Yeah. Yeah. And then there's no doubt. And I'll tell you, the universe will answer you immediately. Immediately. And we could do a whole session on
Oh yeah, I know
trauma.
we could.
I won't go down
We
that
only got
rat
about
hole.
8 minutes. We only got about 8 minutes left, but
Right.
I know, so we can't get down that go down that rabbit hole. But you've authored 6 books. So you want to tell us all a little bit about the books, what they're about, what you're hoping people to take away from that?
Yeah. It's actually 8 now.
Okay, sorry.
But 4 of them are collaborations, which means I have a chapter in
Right.
each one, right? And I was invited in for every single one. So, I got a call. Hey, we're doing a book on this. Would you like to have a chapter in it? Um, okay. Right. Let me
Right.
think what story. But the others, so the first book, I was a new coach. I was going through training. I was learning about marketing, and you should have a book because it gives you credibility. So that was Authentic Women Have It All. And that was
Mhm.
about women showing up in business and becoming men and depriving business of the very thing that they have of value. And so that's my calling card, I guess, right? So
Right.
it's be true, be authentic. But then after that, um, Journey to Enlightenment. Um, so I have Journey to Enlightenment, and then the empowering process. And then, so the empowering process is 366 empowering questions. There's a whole story behind that, but empowering questions will get you more results than affirmations. I guarantee. Then Journey to Enlightenment was when the universe told me to take the Kabbalah and make it sensible to people.
Mhm.
Like, okay, right? So I
Right.
did that. And then Lessons from Hell, which is my last one, is me documenting my spiritual discovery during chemotherapy. And it's where I invited God in and to stay with me always, where I leaned in to the experience for growth purposes, that I never saw myself sick. I saw myself going through a journey. And I argued and laughed with the universe. I cried with the universe and joked with the universe. At one point I was laughing and I said, I'm yelling at myself, aren't I? This is stupid. This is ridiculous. Right?
Right. Right.
Right. Right. And so it's full of those realizations, you know, um, along with Eastern and Western medicine perspective, because I use them both.
Nice. And they can find those on your website, right?
They can find them on the website, and they're all on Amazon.
Okay.
Yeah.
So, and we got a few minutes left. So, speaking of empowerment, I do know you also have the Empowerment Process podcast, which I was honored to be on. Would you like to tell people a little bit more about your podcast and what audience that's for?
Oh, God. So that's evolved. So where we've well, it started off with I have a tough story. I woke up and here's how I've grown. Now it's here's my spiritual journey. Here's my enlightenment journey, because we're in that stage right now. in the world where people are experiencing the pain of enlightenment, and they should see that, yeah, it's tough, but man, it's worth it. So to see people like you who've gone through some tough times and are grateful for where we are and how it changes your life dramatically.
Yeah.
Yeah.
If you're listening and paying attention, it can definitely change your perspective and
Yeah. And
and
then
your
once
choices.
you listened and then you don't listen, you get a dope slap right away.
It will slap you upside the head and let
Right?
you know. Gail, we've got a few minutes left. What is the most important that you want people to take away from today?
The most important is that, there are routines that you can do in order to get yourself into alignment, whether you're a leader or an entrepreneur or just a person in a job. It doesn't really matter. It is a human experience, right?
Mhm.
To get into flow. Our friend Howard calls me the flow master because that is alignment. That is alignment. I say if I'm flowing down the river in my kayak and I hang on to the boulder, I'm in trouble.
Mhm.
I want to hang on to my kayak and go down the river and trust it will take me where I need to go.
Yeah. I have someone I need to introduce you to that just reminds me because she is all about flow and water and she used to kayak. So I will have to introduce you to her.
Okay.
As I love connecting. But yeah, I want to thank you so much for joining us. And I look forward to having you back again because I know there is so much more that you and I can talk about.
We could go on. I know.
I know. Easy. It's very easy to do. So, yeah, everybody, I hope you enjoyed this episode. Gail is absolutely wonderful. She's got so much knowledge and nuggets to share. And I know we didn't even scratch the surface, but there is her website there that you can connect with her. I personally look forward to getting those books and reading some of those too, because I always love reading about the different journeys. I love getting the different perspectives. So,
It's
but
been
yeah.
awesome. Laura, thank you so much for your time, and audience. Thank you for listening to us.
You bet. So I want to wish everybody a wonderful week, and we will see you next time on Mindful Mondays with Laura Cross. So don't miss it. Bye bye.
Bye.